Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the very last video of Dragalia month. And it's been quite the journey looking back on all the things that happened throughout the Dragalia Lost series, but that doesn't mean it has to end here and now. This video was made weeks in advance, but by now, I'm probably watching the final chapter of the series. Just because the mobile game of Dragalia Lost is ending, doesn't mean that the IP itself is gone forever. Sure, we'll always have the memories of what happened with Yudin and his friends, but there is still a potential future for the Dragalia Lost series. And this is what this video is talking about. The interesting, fun ideas that Dragalia Lost could do after the mobile game is over. And I feel like this was like the best way to end Dragalia month in my opinion. And maybe instead of saying farewell to a series, maybe there's a better way to say hello once again. These are just rough ideas on what I think the series could do in the future, and if they do actually happen, you never know. So let's start off with the first game I think this Dragalia Lost series could go towards, a console port. It's actually pretty common nowadays that console ports of mobile games tend to release on multiple consoles. And I know some Dragalia Lost fans wouldn't really be invested in playing the same game again, only this time with a price tag of potentially $40 to $60, plus potential DLC with crossover titles like Princess Connect, Monster Hunter, and Persona 5 Strikers. It's just me spitballing ideas, seeing what may or may not stick. Heck, maybe they could even add some bonus stories that weren't included in the Dragalia Lost series. Like a few of the ideas I mentioned that were cut for content in the Dragalia Lost Potential video, if you haven't seen it yet. Though if they can't really port the whole game of Dragalia Lost onto a console, maybe they can port a different part of the game into the console. And an event I generally think is a little underappreciated and I don't think many people played. Mostly because I think it could have been expanded on for other releases. And I'm talking of course about the Alberian Battle Royale. Battle Royale games are usually really popular nowadays, and it's kind of understandable why Dragalia Lost made one. And an extended version of a side game that's not really part of the main story seems like an interesting idea on paper. What makes this idea kind of suffer the most is the concept that most free-to-play mobile games tend to have. Free-to-play battle passes. Though most of the adventurers are usually just palette swaps, with some rare occasions as some of them have unique skills, I would fear if they ever did try to re-release the Alberian Battle Royale as a separate title, that they would add battle passes and only allow specific characters to be unlocked through a paywall. Don't doubt me? Remember, Diddy Kong used to cost $40 on Mario Kart Tour. Maybe action games aren't the best suited for these types of games anymore. Plus, the dragons I think would probably go very underutilized in the Battle Royale. Mostly because they change the dragons every month, and I really doubt anyone would use characters like Little Fafners or even Tiny Dragons. So how about they raise dragons instead? I don't know if virtual pets are still popular anymore, but I think a Dragalia Lost Dragon Pet Simulator would have been a really fun idea. Some of the Dragalia Lost webcomics also have chibi versions of all the dragons throughout the series. I feel like it would have been a wasted potential to not use them at all. You can raise a single one of your favorite dragons or an overabundance of other little dragons, give them their favorite snacks just like you already do in Dragalia Lost, do pet-like stuff like in Nintendogs, and even learn about their favorite foods and hobbies. Anything to let us have Mercury play a video game. Though side games in Nintendo are usually the ones who made the series, sometimes it's always best to always have a different publisher to help out with a title. And plus we can also look at other titles by side games for other inspiration. More specifically, their console IPs. Though the game is yet to release, Granblue Fantasy Relink is somewhat of a retelling of the Granblue Fantasy mobile game in a 3D action RPG adventure, and I believe Platinum is also in collaboration with them. And I think that's probably one of the best steps to take Dragalia Lost in the future, where you can travel throughout all of Grastia, and even have interactions with other different story elements that may or may not connect with the main story, like the Apostles and many others. And you can make some of the other limited events into side stories or even DLC for the future, or even have other companies use your characters in other DLC titles. Side Games also made a 2D dungeon crawler known as Little Noah, and they've already have DLC for Princess Connect and Usume Derby. Maybe the Switch version could have a Dragalia Lost DLC. Or instead of getting Platinum to help out with an RPG, you can have Arc System help out with a fighting game, similar to Granblue Fantasy Versus. Or what inspired me to make this video, Dragalia Lost Pact Bound, a fighting game featuring all your favorite Dragalia Lost characters and some you wouldn't think of as fighters. Though Granblue Fantasy's roster was kind of the weakest part of the early build, featuring only 11 characters, I think a good starting roster in my opinion would be 25. And these are just the regular humans. The reason I call this game Dragalia Lost Pact Bound, or DLPB, would be because you're not just fighting with your favorite characters from the Dragalia Lost series, you could also make a pact with other dragons you can use as playable characters. Instead of a special attack meter, you would actually have a pact bound meter, and once when you have it fully charged, you can transform into the dragon of your choice for a limited amount of time. Of course, a lot of the characters you can customize any dragon of your choice, but there will be some characters who only have a specific dragon for their party team. You can have specific characters have specific dragons, or you can have some characters have multiple dragons. A good example is if you use Mim as a playable character, you can only play as Brunhilde, on account of they are the same person. I mean, it'd be really weird if Mim could for some reason transform into Midgardsormr. Also, to add a little more diversity to the character roster, a lot of them could even have assist characters in some way. For example, Vixel is the main character you control, but you can summon characters like Lucrezia, Pia, Laius, and Marishaton for specific attacks. Or if you have a character like Heinwald who specializes in staff-wielding abilities, Duran will come in to help out, as he is an axe wielder. And of course, my favorite character, who I've put on this roster, Annalie, would actually have Liger and Fritz help out in battle. With her activating her pack bound, she'll be able to ride Liger. A lot of their super attacks would be, of course, circus-themed. Plus, these wouldn't be the only characters they wouldn't use at the roster. They could even add DLC, like characters like Leaf, Audric, Lara Noah, Lazari, and many, many more. Even adding characters who weren't playable in the main game, like the Agito, or the final boss of the series, Xenos. Dragalia Lost Packbound, I think, is like the best choice in my opinion for the Dragalia Lost series. But then again, a lot of different titles can be turned into fighting games, and I think a lot of people would eventually get sick and tired of Arc System games making fun over-the-top fighting games. Or maybe they'll get a different company entirely to do something pretty unique. Or maybe Nintendo can get another company who specializes in a specific type of game. You know, like the Warriors series by Koei Tecmo. A Dragalia Lost Warriors game, or Dragalia Warriors, I think would be a really fun and interesting step towards the series. I mean, yeah, all Warriors games practically play the same with some unique gameplay, but I think Dragalia Lost would actually benefit for a lot of different things they have. For example, the source material that they use for upgrading items and weapons and even characters could be used to actually upgrade other characters. Just please, no unique item-specific characters for specific fights. That is really annoying. I did not like that in Hyrule Warriors, and I did not like that in Fire Emblem Warriors. I think the material gathering in Age of Calamity is probably the best way to go, where you can fight a multitude of different missions based off different types of story elements in the game, and even have ones based off slimes, event compendiums, and of course Agito, angels, and all that. Also, a lot of the characters in Dragalia Lost could equip themselves with weapons that they actually use within the mobile game, giving them different types of playstyles. You could of course have standard swords for Yuden, or you can have him use a dagger just like in the beach episode. Elisane could use a spear just like she does with her standard design, and of course she can also use an axe just like in her paladin design. Adding a lot of more diversity in the characters' playstyles, you can also choose a lot of your favorite characters in specific outfits and different fighting styles. And lastly, you can also equip a dragon of your choosing for every single character. Though you can only choose one different dragon type per party member, and having playable dragons in your party would not allow you to use specific dragon types, adds a lot of variety to customization, combat style, and of course stat boosts. Though I'm unsure whether or not it would be an original story or it would follow the main campaign of the original game. But considering that most Warrior games are usually non-canon to the source material, especially with all the Nintendo titles, it would probably be a unique story in its own. Though that's everything game-wise I think Dragalia Lost can do for the future, it isn't the last thing I think that holds the future of Dragalia Lost as a whole. I think Dragalia Lost can be one of those multimedia projects similar to Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog works so well as a character, he's actually a lot better in a lot of different medias. And there are a lot of different Dragalia Lost fans out there making their own unique fan content for us to get. My personal favorite is this person actually making tons of these cool Dragalia Lost plushies, and I'm planning on buying a Cleo one in the future. But I think the last saving grace, in my opinion, is a Dragalia Lost animated series. That game actually has a multitude of a lot of their titles in animation form. Grand Blue Fantasy, Princess Connect Redive, Usame Derby, and Dragalia Lost could be another one of those titles that could get an anime adaptation. I mean, a lot of the promo material is already in an animation style that I think could work in an animated series. Plus, a lot of these animes are made in-house by Cygames themselves, and a lot of those animes, especially those with multiple seasons, are highly anticipated for. And one of those things might go against Cygames actually making an anime adaptation of Dragalia Lost is Nintendo themselves. Though Nintendo, after all these years, is experimenting more on expanding their content more than just the video games, as we have the awesome Super Nintendo World, that we are getting a US release next year and an expansion in the Japanese version. Next year also is the anticipated Super Mario movie with Chris Pratt voicing Mario. But considering Illumination is behind that, I am not holding that one to high regard. Sure, Nintendo has made anime series about their IPs in the past. I mean, the closest thing we really got to an anime adaptation were 3 animated shorts of Kid Icarus Uprising by 3 different studios in promotion of Kid Icarus Uprising. I really hope that Nintendo lets Cygames make a production this interesting. As personally myself, I think a Dragalia Lost anime would be one of the most highly regarded animes of said year, as I actually really enjoyed titles like Princess Connect Redive, Zombieland Saga, and Grand Blue Fantasy. But I'll wait and see what the future holds for Cygames and Dragalia Lost itself. And there you have it. This is the end of Dragalia month, and the ending of Dragalia Lost as a whole. Before we end this video, I just want to say a lot of thank yous to the many different people out there. Starters, shout out to the YouTube channel Hunter's Lodge, who actually has literally every single story element within the Dragalia Lost game on their YouTube channel, so go check them out after watching Dragalia month. I want to thank my alliance, the Pipple Plantation, for staying with us for so long. Even though most of you guys are gone now, I'll never forget all the fun adventures we've had throughout the years. I want to thank Cygames and Nintendo for making a mobile game that, honestly, I'm never going to forget. And I want to thank you guys, the hardcore, dedicated Dragalia Lost fans who stayed with it to the very end. Though Dragalia Lost is over, that doesn't mean it's the end of Dragalia Lost as a whole. I made this video series because I wanted to do something dedicated to something I really enjoyed, and I really hope Nintendo and Cygames plan to make other new content for the series sometime in the future. But until then, I'll just generally say what I always do in every Dragalia Lost match with online people. Together, victory will be ours.